All right, so here the big fight between two options. If you want to do PhD outside of India, in abroad, there are two options out there: USA or European countries. Like people say USA or UK, but I'll say USA. UK is a part of European country, and also take UK as a separate entity. In both the cases, either there is a USA or there is European country. Between the two, who will win this fight? For an Indian candidate, for an Indian student who want to do its PhD outside of India, is it the USA or is it the European countries like Germany, France, or is it the UK? Which is better? Or is it the Asian country which is better? I have an answer to you, but the answer is not simple, not straightforward. The reason behind it is that personal preferences may vary, but there are some very valid reasons that we need to put through. There are very valid reasons. For example, the research quality that we are going to engage in all these nations. Second is the stipend provided by these universities and colleges and institutes of all these places. The third is the work-life balance. The fourth is the living conditions and the living scenario, how safe that place is for you, whether there is any kind of racial discrimination, also very important. And the last thing is the future prospect. So whether you want to come back to India or want to stay there in that foreign land after the PhD is done. So considering these 5 important steps, you need to decide whether USA is good for you or UK is good for you, European countries, other European countries like Germany, France, Italy good for you, or the Asian countries like Singapore is good for you. You can decide yourself based on these 5 parameters that we are about to show you, that we are about to discuss about in this particular webinar section as a question and answer Q&A session with Mr. Bivas Nag. And I told you earlier as well, Bivas has already accomplished doing masters from Germany, and now he is there in US UCSF applying there as a PhD scholar. So you get to know about both those things, right? You have this clear idea in your mind. He has the clear idea in his mind regarding to do the PhD work and staying in not only in US but also in European country like Germany. He has the capability, he has the knowledge of understanding that he wants to share with you. So let's see what this discussion unfolds. The third question I have, which country is better to do PhD? I know that it varies from person to person. There are preferences in terms of where they live in, whether the country is situated in US or the places in somewhere in US or UK or even in Asian countries. But still, I believe there might be little changes in the way the research is being done in all these countries. So can you give me an overview about 3 separate places? One is the PhD in US, PhD in UK, PhD in other European countries and Asian countries if possible, in these 4 places. So among the 4, what kind of students should prefer what kind of places to do their PhD journey?
Okay, first I'll give an overview of how I see this separated. So there are 3 different criteria. So let's say if you want to talk about research, in US the research is very fast, and you have research done with different newest technology, I would say, and that is very fast in the research field, and we have a lot of funding in the research field. So if you want to do an experiment, you can do it 5 different ways at the same time. Whereas in UK and in Europe, the research is fast paced, but they tend to stick to newer version, not the newest version, because there is some limited funding as compared to US. Third, if you talk about the Asian countries, there is funding, but there are various discrepancies about how the research is done, because either there is like lack of collaboration between a lot of labs, which in the US, so that the research pace is a little bit slower in Asian countries. But there are exceptions as well. So for example, there are exceptions. There are NUS Singapore, NTU, which is doing very fast research as well. So these are first on the research criteria. Work-life balance. US is very much dependent on what result you give. So they are very result driven. If you want to work hard, if you can get your result done, and if you work only for 2 hours, they are okay with that. They are very result driven people. UK and Europe, work-life balance is very good. And when I say about work-life balance, I also talk about the safety. I also talk about the transportation. I also talk about all other things, which includes your mentally and professional life. So work-life balance is very, very good. In Asian countries, one of the major problem that is being faced by the students in PhD is like they have to do all the work apart from their research as well. Like along with their research, they also have to manage their lab because there's a lack of lab managers in a lot of the universities in the Asian countries. So as a result, they have to handle a lot of things. So that becomes a very hectic. And also in Asian countries, one of the problem is they don't get funding on time. Let's say their funding gets delayed like for a month or some, but there are also exceptions. So I'm not again talking about entire thing. Third is the cost of living. Cost of living is like in US and in Europe and in UK, one thing is very sure that they will not give you stipend that less that you won't survive. Yes, there. If you live in New York, your savings will be less. If you're living in some different countries, your saving will be higher. So cost of living I won't consider like as a criteria because more or less everyone ends up saving equal amount. But yeah, and the fourth thing, what I say is what I felt was very important was like, as I said, future aspiration. So if someone wants to stick to industry, I would say Europe, doing a PhD from Europe is advantageous. Why? You complete your PhD in 3.5 years. You have a lot of industrial collaboration. There's a concept of industrial PhD that is going on in Europe, and you have a lot of directly uh, you can directly get recruited by the university, by the industry after your PhD. In US, the problem with someone wants to pursue industry or someone wants to pursue industrial field, the problem is in US you won't get a permanent position unless and until you get H1B visa, which is like a major thing that is required. So US is not an ideal destination for industry because you won't get a permanent position. You will be always on a temporary notice. Whereas in UK you will get. But if you want to be in the field of academia, I would say I would prefer US. There are two reasons for that. Since I also applied for Europe and I also applied for US, one of the major reasons I didn't choose Europe particularly is you see very less people of color to get a position, get a PI position. When I say people of color who are not white, who are not German, who are not white people. So people of color don't get much position in European context. You can see across Europe, not only in Germany, in Sorbonne, in Paris, and like in other places as well. Whereas in US, you have direct example of people who are Indian getting a position in as a PI. So if you want to do academia, I would choose US, and if you want to do industry, I would choose Europe. So that would be my roughly categorization of like who should apply to which place.
Okay, good, fine. So if somebody need to choose between European countries and US, then they need to go through all these aspects. Like as you said, the cost of living largely varies from person to person, and also
Yeah.
the way they spend, the way they live. Right. So that is something as a personal opinion. But apart from that, for future application, for future aspiration, if somebody need to work in industry and stay there and build a career outside of India, then Europe is the choice. And if you need to build a career in academics, you're looking into the academic field, then US is the better choice.
Yeah.
That is a summary for this part of the question. Okay. Now, one more query is that cost of living. When you say the cost of living part in here, so this part comes because many students have this question, like how much money you can make after, like during the PhD and even after the PhD is over. Then what will be your expected remuneration for that to stay there as well. So in that terms we will convert it and calculate this in terms of India later on. But what is the salary average expenditure and average income a person can have in US as well as in European countries, if you differentiate between the two?
Okay, so for European countries, after tax, you get around 2,400 to 2,500 euro per month, like a PhD student salary. But that can vary across different countries because of taxes and because of other things. In US, you get around roughly around 38 to $40,000 per year. So that's a rough amount, but it will increase and decrease based on which place you are going, which place you are not going. I'll break down the cost of living as well. Let's go for Europe. Europe, anywhere you are living, you will spend across 800 to 1,000 euro for your living, for your accommodation, and then you have 300 to 400 euro for your like food and everything. Health insurance is covered, so you don't need to worry about that.
Insurance is covered by the employer. I mean, the PhD institute.
By the university or by the lab you are working. Similarly, for US, you spend around 1,000 to like 800 to $1,000 for your cost of living, which is average, and then you spend around 400 to $500 for your like living and everything include transports and everything, and health insurance is again uh, covered by the university. So roughly you end up saving equal amount in both the cases.
And you said in Europe, the amount you say 800 to 1,000, that is in dollar or in pound? That you say?
In euro. In euro.
And this one is in dollar.
Yeah.
Fine. So if you see that in Europe, approximately the maximum cut 800, so 1,000 for the accommodation and food, like 1,500. So it's 1,500. So you end up in saving 1,000, roughly 1,000 euro a month. You'll end up saving, in that way. And in US also, if it is $1,500, so we'll do that 1,500 into 12, that gives you 18,000. So approximately you'll have $20,000 savings in US as per this calculation. And $20,000 savings in US is not a bad idea at this moment as you're starting your career.
Yeah.
And one more thing is regarding the time frame that you will be given the stipend for doing PhD in Europe as well as in US. The time difference, is there any time difference?
Like time difference of how many years you getting paid? Okay, so in both of these cases you get an increment every year. So in Europe, you normally the contracts are for 3.5 year to 4 or extended to 5 years. But in US, it's 5 to 5. Normally the contract is for 5 years, extended to 7 years.
Okay, got it. And if it's extended, you're also going to get that stipend for the extended period of time as well.
Exactly.
And is increasing every single year. Okay. What is the rate of increment every single year? The percentage?
It's very less, but I would say like let's say $4,000 per year or something sort of that, like that type of increase, which is very less, but you see like it ends up saving.
You'll see a growth with time. Yeah. Okay. One more vital question is there throughout this time frame of doing PhD in US as well as in European countries as in UK. Do you get time to upskill yourself in some way? Do you get the sufficient time? And second thing, do you require to do any other job in order to sustain you, or is it possible to do it as a part-time jobs or any other things along with that to make some extra income? Two questions are out there.
In Europe, you get a plenty of time to work on yourself, like you have, because normally when in Europe it says 9 to 5, they mean 9 to 5. So you won't see your PI after 5 p.m. They will go home. You won't see your maximum European friends working after 5 p.m. So you get a lot of time. Second, in Europe you can't do part time. Like if you're paid, you can't do a part time because that's something clause across like European Union that you are getting paid, and there are some work limit that you can only work. So that the work hour limit is already covered in your PhD contract. In US, there is variety of people. It completely depends on you. If you want to work the whole day, you can. If you want to work, there is, as I said, it's very result driven. If you can show the result, or if you can show the progress, you are allowed to work 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day. So you are flexible in that. So it also largely depends on your lab culture and lab environment. But like lab I was from, I had enough time for myself to go across places because I love traveling. So I went across a lot of places in US. So you get time, but it's very subjective and it depends on you. And second is, in US, people do part time within the universities. Let's say you can do a lot of TAs and graduate research assistantship, which gives you an extra bit of payment, because sometimes what you get, let's say if you're living in some places where you feel your stipend is a little lower, so you can opt for TA and you can opt for GRA, like graduate assistantships, and you can work for university library or something sort of that, just to make friends as well as also to get a little more income, which is flexible across the US. So that's
These
another
jobs are
criteria.
generally on-campus jobs that you can
Yeah,
do
on campus job. On campus job.
and they don't have any problem in terms of this, as European Union, as you said, that they had an issue with the
No.
no, they don't have any issue. Okay, okay, that's another important information. Yeah, so yeah, fine, okay, so we have a very much clarity right now on how to apply. We have a clarity on what is the cost to apply, and how much you can get as a stipend. Your work-life balance is all sorted. And when we have three more topics I sent you earlier, like PhD life in US, PhD life in UK, so we have a sense of idea right now what your life is going to be. So as I understood from here is that in Europe, there is a fixed time frame where the people work, and beyond that time frame you don't need to work. You need to work in that time frame, and industry should be your target in order to fetch a job later on. And in US also, you can work, if you can show result, you can work less per day, you can work part time. And regarding the work life balance, as you said, that both the place, Europe and US, are quite similar compared to like how you are going to spend your time. You can travel, as you said, you traveled while staying in US in places, right? So you have your time to do that. And but one part left, that is the Asian countries. Asian means, by Asian I'm not talking about India but specifically, we'll talk about India later at the end. But Asian means the other countries here. So do you have any idea regarding Asian countries, to do PhD in Asian countries, the work-life balance, how do it be?
The work-life balance is, again, in Asian countries, people tend to work more. Asian people tend to work more. That's a normal thing. So work-life balance is good, but you also have to take this in back of my mind, because I have a lot of my friends working in NUS, NTU, and other places, that you need to spend time. Like it's similar to US, I would say. Like you spend a little bit more time as compared to other, as compared to Europe, and you have time for yourself. It's very safe, I would say. Like especially Singapore, Japan, other places, very safe. So you also get that leverage to go around places as well. So
So
that's the thing.
by marking them safe, what do you want to mean? Like comparatively, US, UK, US, European countries, and Asian countries. By safe in terms of what you are saying, like the approach of their local people out there and their environment. What do you mean by that term?
When I talk about safe, it means, like, let's say you are very aware of gun violence in US,
Yeah.
right? So the gun rule is very, so there are a lot of casualties that's being reported every year in US, and there are some hotspots in US. Let's say there's one very good university, let's say John Hopkins University is in Baltimore. Baltimore is one of the, it's known for its crime. So I would say, mentally you always think about, okay, there might something happen to me, but you don't have. I am not saying that you will always end up getting something happening to you, but at least mentally you are in a state that, okay, I need to be safe. I need to be aware of when I'm walking down the streets. Whereas in Europe, I would say you can walk across the streets even at night, even at midnight, like even 3 a.m., 2 a.m. It's okay. But in US, normally people don't suggest you to work out or like roam around outside like at 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. because it's not that safe, and especially if you're alone, because of the gun violence and because of the other rules that are there, and because and as compared to also in Asia, Asia is much safer. Like you can go around at least in 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. because there's more regulated, more police are there, and the gun violence is less. So in terms of safety, I meant that level of safety. So
Okay, got it. One more query is that what is the level of a person is leaving their house, leaving their home, they are acquainted here in India, and they are traveling to a country which is completely new to the person up until they reach there. So there are times I know numerous students of mine, they are there. There is a sudden time they call me and say like I'm literally like, I'm doing things good, my work is going fine, but still there is a vacant place somewhere in my mind. Like I'm away from my home, I cannot go every single occasion to that place. So in that case, one thing matter is friendship, academic relationship, and the relationship with you, with your colleagues, the relationship with you, with your PI, the lab head. So in terms of this nourishment of human contacts and relationships, how do you rank US, European country, and Asian countries?
I would say US is very good in terms of this matter because you can start small talk with any person. You can start small talks with even a Uber driver. They will like give you a good time, like you can have chat because they're very friendly, they're very open. Um, One of the reason I shifted from Europe to US is because I was mostly settled in Germany. What happens like if you tend to have a German PI, and if there again it's very subjective. If you tend to have a German PI and if you have a lot of German colleagues in your lab and you are the only international people and you don't know German as a language, you tend to miss out. Because what will happen is that German people in a lab gathering, they will talk to you in English, but English is not their primary language. So if there are a lot of German people, they will immediately switch to uh, their language. So tend you get this idea of missing out from your lab context. I faced this while I was in Germany because I had these two labs where I worked in a lab where the lab head was German and there are a lot of German people and I was only international people. And I also had a lab where the lab head was not German and there were a lot of international people and I was also the international people. So I know the difference because when there's a lot of international people, all of them know English. Like they have different languages. I know Bengali, someone know Brazilian, and something on the other end. So you tend to mix a lot. Whereas in certain part of Europe, like Paris, like some parts of Paris, so it's very lab specific. So you tend to miss out that. But in US, since the entire population is either international, either US, you get to gel a lot with your lab. And Asian people is also, I would say, are a little bit on the side of European people. Let's say if you are working in uh, a lab where a lot of these people know their own dialect, they tend to, you know, gel together as compared to with you. But again, it's a lab context. If you be in a lab where there's a lot of international students, you will get a lot of exposure and a lot of friends. You will make a lot of friends. So that's one of the reasons that I moved from Europe to US because I want to talk. I love to talk, so I need some people to at least share my views. Yeah.
So in terms of FOMO, fear of missing out, it is in the European countries and Asian somewhere, but in US you have this broader audience because all speaks English and anyone can break small talk, as you say. So it's better to make new friends and to have like to not think yourself as someone who is out from the rest of the peers. So yeah, that is another very important aspect a person should look when they apply to it. Okay, otherwise otherwise what happens when you come to a lab lab meetings and those things are one-sided things, but beyond that there is a life, right? As you said that in Europe itself you say 9 to 5, even after 5 you need to invest your time, and you are not going to work all the week around. There are weekends, there are times where you need to spend and celebrate, there are occasions out there. So in that case you require a group of friends and people who will be in contact. I won't call them typically friends, but the colleagues that you will get there, at least to talk to them, and in a way you can feel yourself at least somewhere, you belong, you feel yourself satisfied as a person. Okay, so that is a really interesting insight that we get from here. So yeah, till this moment, like, we have most of the queries answered, most of the queries that are asked by our students answered. And now I have one final query, and then we'll come to the situation in India and conclude this conversation. And the final query is that regarding like, what will happen afterwards, right? Because that is what everybody is trying to figure out. Like, we are applying to the to do PhD outside of India. We get there, either is European countries, USA, Asian countries. The time is done, right? 5 years, 7 years, whatever time frame it is, it's over. After that time frame, how a student from their perspective look into this, like when they start acting in terms of getting a job and staying there in that country, or get out of that country getting a job in India. There are two aspects out there. Okay, so tell me regarding the mindset of a student, and what's supposed to be a proper mindset in order to stay either in that country or to get out of that country, and when they should start planning it from the time of their PhD completion.
So normally, if you're aware, like, so from PhD perspective, I would say, PhD, after you have done your PhD, one easy transition is like industrial transition. It's like if you want to switch to industry, so you can switch to industry in US, you can switch to industry in Europe. So that's an easy transition. Why I would say easy transition? Because normally, if you want to be in academia, postdoc is one another layer that you need to add. So getting a postdoc is relatively easier, I would say. Because why? Because postdoc doesn't have a portal, right? So you get either directly to a lab collaborator who have been working on your project. So that is an easy transition. But if you don't want to do a postdoc, if you directly want to switch to industry, you have options. Like, switching to industry needs, you should think from like the end of your third year that, do I have the skills to switch to a university? So let's say if you are from an ecology background and you need to do the research that time, that okay, if I want to switch to industry, what are the ecological industry that are there? What are the skills they require for me to apply? So I think that from the third year end, you should think that and try to build on those skills, because that skills are important. Industry is way more tougher, I would say, as compared to academia. Academia is an easy transition because you get directly recruited by a collaborator, or let's say a lab you are applying, because people don't stay in academia long. So that is the thing. And regarding coming back to India, I have seen a lot of people after PhD come back to India to do a industrial job, which is very readily accepted, because in Indian university, again, India is a biotech university going up, and they want to recruit people who have done like things from abroad. And regarding academia, I'll touch a little bit on academia as well. So after PhD, you go to a postdoc, you do a postdoc. So after postdoc, you again have this dilemma that whether I want to do a industry or whether I want to do a academia. So academia in US or in Europe, I would say it's all basis that whether you are getting a grant or not, or whether you're bringing a grant under your name or not. If you are struggling with that, you won't get a direct position of being a professor, being a PI. So you get into assistant professors and so on, and you need to try on to bring a grant. But if you want to come back to India, I think the age limit is 35. Before that, you need to apply. And also, if you have done your PhD and postdoc from QS ranking and PhD ranking under 500, you don't need to even give CSI and NET to be a professor. So you can directly apply. And it's a trend. Like, it's a trend that I'm seeing nowadays with a lot of these universities that is growing. Let's say, I will give you an example. Let's say Ashoka University, they're recruiting very excellent professors who have done like PhD and postdoc from outside and with a lot hefty amount, and they're coming and setting up their lab in India. So if you have done postdocs outside, like US or Europe in a good place, there are higher chances of you getting a position in India, because you see a lot of people who are in the PI position in TIFR, in TBS, in any other, they have at least done their postdocs in from US or from Europe. So these are the chances more. So thinking from like future perspective, there are different junctures from PhD, because after PhD, postdoc getting into directly a PI position is very rare. But you can end up getting into, let's say, there one of my senior I know who have done the PhD and got directly into being a chief scientific officer in CSIR, in one of the CSIR institutes. So these are small examples, but mostly PhD to industry and postdoc then to academia. I would say that's the transition normally people.
So if somebody needs to stay in not in India, outside of India. So after PhD, industry is easy, as you said. Industry transition is easier compared to the academia. So why people, as you said, that most of the people they prefer industry, not academia. What is the reason? Is it because the transition to industry easy at that moment, or is it because the future prospect of industry is better, the income is more than academia? What is the reason?
Income is more. You get a stability. You get a stability because if you are in European countries, and if you want to set up a family, you need more income, because that's one of the thing. And also your mental stability is much more stable in industry, because again, if you're doing a postdoc, you are under someone, right? And you are very much focused on, okay, you need to produce this result, you need to be on time, you need to be on, like, this more than professionalism, I would say, in academia. Whereas in industry, you are more strict to the timeline you're working. Let's say 9 to 5 I work, I go home, I spend time with my family and stuff. So that's also a mental satisfaction that you have. And again, cost of living plays a bigger role when you're planning your future. So that's the thing. Some people who tends to choose academia is only one of the reasons that they're very passionate about the field. Like they want to set up their own lab and they want to, not work under someone else. So that's one, or they want to teach or something sort of. That's one of the other lot of people who choose academia. Otherwise, like the majority trend, like I was seeing my university cohort only. So last year, 20 students registered as a PhD, and the pass out students, 16 of them transitioned to industry, and 4 of them went to academia. So that's a trend we are seeing nowadays. So that's what it's blooming right now. So because they are paying you like exact double. Like let's say if you are getting in your postdoc around $70,000 per year in US, you in industry your salary starts from $120,000. So it's like exactly like 1.5x. So which is like again good.
Well, there's a lot of talk that we did regarding the discussion and selection between US or European countries to do PhD after the masters in Indian education system. And remember, I told you earlier as well in other videos that if you're not confident to do PhD directly in US or UK or in European countries, better get the masters done there first, and then you'll get the confidence, you'll build some contacts, and then you can apply there for a PhD position. And if that helps you, that'll be the better choice. But again, the choice is up to you, depending upon what you require in your life, depending upon your future prospect, whether you want to stay there or get back to India and join Indian education system as a lecturer, or be a part of the industry, the biotech industry in India. Depending upon that, you will decide, but the decision factors are already been discussed, and obviously it depends on changes, the opinion changes person to person. So depending upon your scenario, your condition, you must decide what you need to do here. But the myths are burst already, they are busted. You know that there are multiple myths out there which are not true, and we cleared all these myths for you. So now you can take an informed decision, and if you need any help to take any further decision regarding this, you can contact Bibhash directly, and the link is there in the description. You can click that link, you'll be redirected to my website page. From there you'll get all the details, and you can contact him for the further assistance. So if you like this video, please hit the like button, share this video with your friends and colleagues, subscribe to this channel to get more videos like that in future, and watch every single video of this abroad application series, because this is going to make you ready for applying PhD candidate abroad.